Here we go. Lucky Friday the 13th. And the sun is shining. I was a bit moody. A bit stressed financially. My only stress now is financial, but many of my fellow Canadians are also going through a financial stress as I am. So I gotta be grateful because I got some cold cuts for the weekend. Gotta get it on that left, right, and in the middle. And now we're going to the mountain, my second home. We're gonna traverse here, or either we go straight or in left or right, it doesn't really matter. Just gonna have to press the button and gonna have to put the gloves on because it's of course still minus 10, feels like minus 18, but of course it's correlated to being dressed properly, right? So being dressed properly is what is recommended on a cold day like this, cold Friday the 13th. You know, we gotta get it on the March, 3rd March. Well, I marched Monday and Tuesday, but I went to the laundromat, so it's gonna be 3rd March, long march to the mountain, and we're gonna go. We're coming from the west, so we're gonna go east. The mountain is that way, of course, and because the mountain is that way, there's a few kilometers from here, and I gotta press the button, of course. Gotta salute the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, the electricians, the plumbers, the welders, and the bakers, bus drivers, firefighters always marching for the 10, the 50, and the 3 special binational Salvation Front, setting up together the public-private partnership. My work is as an independent artist and athlete is always a call for a mass public-private partnership, and that's all we got for the 24/7 for the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, the electricians, and the welders. And you know, I gotta be grateful today. You know, my rent's paid, electricity bill's paid. It's a gratitude 24/7. You know, I'm not financially. I'm stressed. I could use a massage therapy session if I would have money. I would go to get at least once. There's the lion. So I don't know. It has zero. It was a 044 on it. 044. It looked like 00044 on it. Aspiesque were obsessed with tiny little details like that, eh? And that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing like that, you know. And that's how we gotta get on that drill, you know, together. And that's how we co-appreciate and co-equilibrate about, you know, the domains and all the dynamics where we are now. 24/7, of course, for the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the electricians, the welders. Always for them, you know. Always for the left and the right and in the middle. And gotta be careful when you drive. Driving safely is important, especially when you go towards the sun, you know. You could be blinded by the sun, and a lot of people are stressed, especially since, of course, it has, of course, the correlations of the dynamical Imperium, you know, to get drill it on that, and that's what it is with that, and that's what it is for the rock and rolling. And the rock and rolling is 24/7 with this Aspiesque artist athlete, geopolitical, theoretical analyst and theorist, that it is a correlation and fundamental reality of my being as a citizen, androgynous pansexual citizen. Let's see. What is that? Go Canada, go Canada, go Canada, go. Oh, it's for hockey cards. I thought it was the Special Canada coffee, but it's okay, 150. But okay, so that's it says in French, à l'achat d'une boisson. That's the translation is you got to buy the drink. So then you get the hockey cards for 150. I guess it's interesting. You know me, dancing is my favorite sport. Dancing is my favorite sport, but I would actually, you know, if I would be a millionaire, I would support on the list the PVHL, Professional Women's Hockey League. The PVHL, especially Victoria, I would buy all the tickets. I would prioritize women's hockey in Montreal, and then I buy for the Habs. You know, they got some of them got $7.4 million a year contracts, while the women sometimes, you know, they get 44,000. So there's a mathematical, statistical disproportionality, which if I would be in a financial position, of course, having billions of dollars, I would, of course, help, you know. But that is, of course, the dynamic where we are now. So left and right and in the middle, and that's how we do it, more by practical applications, you know. So that's how we got 24/7, you know, for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, and the doctors, the plumbers, the electricians. And now my brain is, of course, being those mathematics, because I saw that the price of gas went up again, not by much, but by 1 cent. 1 cent per it adds up though, because if you compare from 6 years ago, it was 93 cents, so 93 cents, that was the price of gas 6 years ago in 2020 today, February 13, 2020, 6 years ago, the price of gas was 93 cents. As in yesterday's video, you can see the big mathematical calculations. So you can see those calculations, and now we can calculate together and say that if this citizen driver had the same car last 6 years ago, that means that the citizen driver will pay about 60% more. Actually, today we'll pay 151 minus 93 is 58. 58 cents more. 58 cents more. 58 cents more, 58 cents per liter. But 58 cents per liter, 10 liters, it's already $5.80, right? 40 liters is 10 times 4, it's 40. So that's you times $5.80 times 4, that is 5 times 4. Well, that's 20 and 80 cents. Well, that's 320. So 23. 20, right? Because 20 plus 3, 20. So in other words, it adds up tremendously. That is just the extra cost. The $23 is just the extra cost per 40 liters. It's not a total cost. It's just what you pay more. So see, it adds up. So a full tank, if you're 50 liters, it costs you maybe 25 more, maybe more than it costs you in 2020. Then you get 4 times 25, that's 100 for filling the gas tank 4 times. In February, if you got to fill it 4 times, in this week is the 4th time you fill it, or in February, because it was pretty much the same, that means that you paid $100 more than in 2020. Woo! See? It sucks the wealth. It sucks the purchasing power from the citizen. That's how my brain works mathematically. And of course, I have Asperger's and HFA, high-functioning autism. I've been improving my social skills and social awareness and the dynamics lots. I've been improving lots in the past days, that's what it is. With that past days and then the consequential relationships where we are now to be correlated in the domains. But that is just, of course, the relationships where we are now, to be, because I'm different. And Asperger's is not a mental illness. Again, somebody made the mistake to qualify it as a mental disease. I'm still coughing from last week. I had a little bit of a big flu. I feel much better now, but it's just the phlegm. So, yeah, here we are on the march. Geopoliticking, discussing special Binational Salvation Front edition. Binational Salvation Front edition with the special Canada. Canadian Republic edition special. Canadian Republic edition. The King is absent special edition. The King is absent, my brothers and sisters, fellow Canadians. The King is absent. We're going to get into geopolitics in a bit, but I introduced it because rock and roll, geopolitics, sports and fitness, those are my trinity of interest, special interest, and I guess sports and neurotypicals, you see it in a way, and as neurodivergent who have Asperger's or Aspies, Aspie, being that I have Asperger's, when I say that I'm an Aspie, A-S-P-I-E, or that I live with HFA, high-functioning autism, which is the same as Asperger's now, because in 2013, 2014, they merged, they fused as one. Think of it like two twins, but conjoined in many ways, so now they're one and the same, they kind of fused, I guess, the twins. And they work together, but it's basically one. They're one, basically. Asperger's and HFA are also known as Autism Spectrum Disorder Level 1, ASD Level 1. So those are the 3 different ways to express, to label, to divulge, to credit, because we are not perfect. We Aspies certainly are different, and In my community, we suffer from very high unemployment, not just high, but monstrous, 80%. Think about that. Love that red, 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 my favorite color. Red, my favorite color. So, till the end, I guess, I'm always going to be an Aspie. It's not something that I'm ashamed of. When people started, several citizens who have, especially my anonymous friend, thank you, especially for gifting me, renting several books from the library and gifting me books on autism and on Asperger's, but I gotta recommend one book specifically, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is a book that I highly recommend. And so we ourselves, sometimes we are direct and straightforward, and that can offend. But I was, years and years ago, since around 2015, when people started telling me, you have Asperger's, you're on the spectrum of autism, you have HFA, you have Asperger's, high functioning autism, Asperger's, you're on Aspie, you have a level of autism, blah, blah. I didn't want to accept it for like 7 years. It took me 7 years. In 2015, 2016, there was more stigma, more shame, more stigma attached to it rather than it is now, So that's what it is with that. So there was more stigma in the correlation. There was more stigma, but now there's less, right? Because there's more education. There's been more education in regards to what Asperger's is and what Asperger's is not. So now, of course, we have to discuss what Asperger's is or what Asperger's is not, What Asperger's is and what Asperger's is not. So what is not is a mental illness or disease, So that's what it is with that. We have to categorically reject that and educate people who make the statement that it is a disease. See, for example, I'll give you an example of how my Aspie brain constantly works, as you can see from my previous video. So now I'm trying to figure out the distance between these poles. See, mathematically, there's a mathematical distance, right? There's yards, and they look like they're exactly the same, right? Of course, here, it seems like there's a bit difference. And of course, building this bridge, you might not see it right away, but there's a lot of math involved, right? Because you have to build it so that it holds for a certain amount of time. So there's mathematics there. For example, you have to have the strength for the pillars to be in a certain way. So see, now I'm giving you a one-on-one course on how my Aspie brain views things now. So of course, I try to look at the inclination. See, because it's built in like a steep. Because there's a little bit of a hill, a small hill, Hill, a small hill, So being that it's a small hill, with that is something which we have now to remind ourselves in with that. And that is how it's inclined, and that inclination is at a certain angle, right? So of course there is the brains, the muscle to build this bridge, and we have to build bridges, small, medium, large, or extra large bridges in the consequences what we have to do now, capabilities thereof. But this bridge has lots of math, and now I'm pretty joyous. When I march, I have my ritual like routine now to get I have my ritual routines, but that is just the reality. So see how it goes like that? See there, one. So that's mathematics. There's an exact, precise mathematics of the suspension, how it is, right? So you have 1, 2, and 3. So this is the categories, of course, where we have now to be discussing about, and that is just the relationships of where we are now. So see, it goes up, right? So that pillar there, those pillars are bigger than that pillar. So for example, by how much? Right, that's a mathematical question, because there's an exact number. Mathematic, there's that precision. There's an exact number, right? That cannot be negotiated with, really. But I mean, you can negotiate when you build it, because you can build it in different ways by using mathematical principles. So yes, there is negotiation, but as it is already built now, there's a certain dynamic. And I guess if I would be discussing this with a fellow Aspie, see, yeah, I love math, and I love, if you're black or white or rainbow or, whatever, a man and woman, I'm always open for friends with benefits. That's why I don't want to waste anybody's time, because Aspies, we have trouble making friends, and not making them necessarily, but keeping them long term, so keeping them long term, keeping friends long term, and keeping jobs, because we might be weird like that, we might start a weird discussion, and like your typicals would be, what the hell are you talking about? Well, and I'm not a math genius, I'm far from being a mathematical genius. It's just that my brain works differently. So whenever I cross bridges or structures like this, I always try to calculate mathematically how much it weighs and how much it can sustain, and how long was it built to last. I'm assuming it was built around 44 years ago. It could be 50 years ago. I'm assuming a minimum 44 years ago. How many repairs have there been ever since? Because we need to rebuild our infrastructure. And that's why my dream is a mass public-private partnership, of course, in all the relationships where we are now as a mass public-private partnership, So, of course, all that relationship is that I see the bridges in a mathematical way, right? But there is mathematics in the bridge. But those mathematics are not always obvious, but they're obvious to some. To some people, they're not that obvious, To some, they're not that obvious. To some, they're not that obvious, right? To some people, it might be, what are you talking about? I would have to be specific. So it would be angular, right? The angle. The inclination would be maybe 30 degrees, 20 degrees, right? And the total length, because we have really 3 main pieces, right? We have 1, 2, 3, and then underneath we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 6 pillars. And those pillars differ. So, and this I constantly do in my mind, I love doing this. Now I'm just so happy, actually. I'm in my zone, as it is, in my Aspie zone, right? My Aspie zone is a bit weird, awkward, because I have Asperger's, but, I just live with it. And again, it took me years to accept it. 7 years plus. More than 7 years it took me to finally accept it. It was it wasn't an easy road for my accepting that I have Asperger's and HFA. I didn't want to accept it for more than 7 years until 2022, around October 2022. So it's been 3.5 years. So I just demonstrated you a little bit of Asperger's one-on-one, right? So that sort of mathematical calculations. Ooh, we got potholes to fix. Look at that. This is dangerous, If somebody comes fast here at night and have a child who's 3.5 days, 3 months, 3.5 months, 3.5 weeks, and he comes with 40 kilometers an hour, the child can bump their heads in that, Well, the child can bump its head in that. So now I decided because I have a backpack and I'm wide-shouldered, I decided I'm just going to wait until my fellow brother, cousins, whatever the case may be, sister, crosses safely with a dog. I love poodles, by the way. I can pet. The other ones make me sneeze. But nonetheless, that is, of course, just the relationship with, another big one there. So this whole road is a lot of potholes there. Whole road is a lot of pothole. See, there's mathematics there as well. The size of it's actually the width, right? The width. So there's an exact width, right? The length. So otherwise, if it's more, you can't get it in. So there's math everywhere. Right? There's mathematics. In my brain, I'm trying to figure out how much will it be to fix these roads, and it seems like they're deteriorating constantly. So these are gonna get bigger. These are gonna get bigger with that. Ta 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 ta. Hey. And Yeah, we have work to do here. See, I'm just in my mind now, and sometimes when I'm in the public and the road, it's just additional safety and prudence because I have this logical mathematical viewpoint when I'm marching now, and I try to, wow, look at that one. That one's big. Look at that one. Now and again, if somebody comes fast and it goes into that could be a danger zone for the children, and that could get bigger. So this whole road, if you go 60 kilometers an hour here at night, children can bump their heads and hurt their heads, get the concussion, eh? So it's safety as well, and it's always best. What is that? Yeah, just don't leave cans like that. Again, the children can see it's open, and the children can come. They can run ahead of their parent. Hey, what's that? And then play and put their finger in there. So I don't mind you drinking. Just drink whatever, do whatever you want at home or the drinking. But keep in mind that not the potholes there. Keep in mind, of course, that it's open. See, this is what the children can, what if, it could be my child, your child. I don't have children of my own, but we're all like a family here, North American Collective, always for the 10, the 50, and the 3, and my North American brothers and sisters. But, of course, if somebody, let's say, comes with a child from here, you have a high-density population area. So I implemented, like yesterday, what I call now, technically, philosophically, the independent citizen security intervention, because there's a small minimal security risk, but there is one, because it could be a child runs in front of the parents, looks at that, what is that, and puts the finger right there and then plays with it, and you have an injured child, which there's that possibility. So because we have added responsibility, duties, and obligations in the public, right? Here's a one-way street, so I'm just gonna recycle it at the next possible place, which is gonna be there. Just gonna recycle it there because it's recyclable. So I'm just gonna squeeze it, make sure the water is out of it. This is where it goes. See, this is the public, and this is what you gotta do. See, recycling, and that's it with all that. That's why we also need the DGA with the Dragon Army. I'm just gonna. The DGA for the environment, Dancing Goddess Army, aka the Imperial Integrated Dance League, to do a public checkings and education, to do it right, because it takes the individual and the collective. If I don't do it, you don't do it. And then the Dragon Army across the 63, because my way is best as a mass public-private partnership at this point in time to fuse Canada in the United States. Right, so when I saw the can there, like yesterday also, so the same thing, I saw it, I calculated, I said this is a high density area, there's a probability that, later today or even tomorrow, if nobody puts it in the garbage in the afternoon, whenever, some parents pass with the child there, the child runs a bit in front of them, and before they can attend, the child already has its hand on that, and since it's open, puts its small fingers in there, and they get their little fingers injured. So that's all. That's a minimal, what I call technically, philosophically, the Integrated Security Service, or the Imperial Integrated Citizen Security Intervention. And in the public, we have added responsibilities and duties and obligations, right? And, I'm not perfect, far from it. I guess I suffered, I struggled, but I have love for my fellow neurotypicals, and I'm willing to work to build bridges, small, medium, large, and extra large, and I will always be an Aspie. I will love my way, and again, if you're black or white or rainbow, or rainbow or black or white or black or rainbow, you gotta be 18 plus for that play, obviously. I always mention it in my videos. You're gonna get carded, just like when you go in a club or go buy alcohol, or here we legalized cannabis in 2019, and that's why I really don't understand what's the whole overdosing with that fentanyl business. If you check my past videos, I had quantified fentanyl as as a bioweapon. because it doesn't make sense, because so many people are dying, and you would like people who are drug dealers, they would like, of course, to get a little bit of that drug dealing with that to make money, to buy their 44 cars and do that mansion and getting on the go with that, and that's what we got, and that's what we do, and that's just rock and rolling with that left, right, and in the middle, but that's my take on fentanyl, because it's so potent. Like, it doesn't make sense that people are dying so much. It doesn't make sense, because from a perspective where you have to make money, or people are drug lords and drug dealers to make money, monetary, financial, right, to buy 44 cars and 3 mansions and a villa, palace, whatever. So, to me, something doesn't add up to me. I just can't add it all up. Something a lot like from maybe my Aspiesque brain, and that's why in the past years, as you can see in my videos, when I discuss the fentanyl crisis in Canada and North America, right? It's Canada, US, and so many overdoses, and they have increased in potency. It seems that it's been tampered with, and there's more of a biological weapon, and we are, because of now we entering my sphere, the DMAA, the Direct Military Assistance in Action. We enter my sphere, geopolitics, and of course, because we got involved in different conflicts which are non-NATO related, what I call the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance in Action, and its consequences of us NATO member countries taking action or assisting militarily, military assistance, not otherwise, that makes, of course, some of us that we have, of course, that we have that strategy to adapt and to incorporate the fact that many transnational criminal syndicate organizations have been, perhaps, or most likely some of them have, or for I don't know how many, but they have been and are being supported by foreign powers, which have nefarious intentions vis-a-vis NATO member countries, because of the DMAA paradox. What I call, check my transcripts, read them and learn them like scripture, learn them like scripture. Of course, the DMAA, the Direct Military Assistance and Action, learn them like scripture. Learn them like scripture. Because it's super important to understand all my philosophies, my theories, my work in geopolitics, independent geopolitical theoretical analysis, philosophy, theorizing strategies, all the geopolitical work which I had done over the past years and years and years, paradoxically, because it is my special interest. Aspies, we have special interests, because of these special interests, of course, we can excel in those special interests which Aspies have to be supported. Again, I don't require much support, more understanding. Gotta be careful, more understanding, and sometimes it takes patience with Aspies, Sometimes it requires patience. Asperger's, it requires patience, with us. So that's how we got the guy on the left and on the right. But these I'm gonna let for somebody else, because I have enough spices. But nice, thank you for contribution. And the beans there, I'm gonna let them here. What is that for? Oh yeah, you have what are those? I'm not sure what they are. I'm not sure what those are. I didn't check. I'm not gonna check with that. That's what he got. And that's what we got, and that's what we do, in consequence, for the left and the right and in the middle, consequentially. And that's what we got to get that prudence, because it's something what we got to be doing, for the left and the right and in the middle, That's what we got, and that's what we got to do, for the left and for the right and in the middle, But nonetheless, the reality of the DMAA is an exact precision, right? Is an exact precision. Exact. Because it's a precision that is geopolitical. Gotta watch the cars here when you pass. Gotta watch the cars, you know. It's a dangerous corner because you got Oxford here and this one, and you got to see the potholes. Look at that. Look at that potholes. Look how big. They're getting bigger. Wow, our streets are really in a bad shape. It's become dangerous now. For tourists are gonna be not coming back if they come from the 50 states, and I want to visit the 50 states, you know. I want to visit because Canada, I crossed Canada coast to coast in 2017. That's what got me out of depression, eh? And I'm going to discuss a little bit about the problems Aspies we have. So Aspies, we have certain ways, certain characteristics which we have, of course, and those characteristics are that we are different, and that difference, of course, is the way that we express ourselves, the way that we communicate ourselves. Sometimes the bodily movements can be awkward, right? You know, can be awkward, and they can be awkward and weird and strange. We might be described as such as well. But it takes, again, patience, right? It takes patience, and that patience, to understand Asperger's, I recommend through reading the book Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. And of course, we might be concerned, for example, I give you another one-on-one, be concerned about weird little details, such as this, see? The volts, the watts there, and small details such as numbers on the labels, you know? Inspecting, for example, I remember around 2015, my anonymous friend said, hey, you know, people are staring at you. What are you doing with that in your face? And you're looking at it and you're turning it and you spend already like a minute on it. I said, yeah, but you know what I'm doing? She responded, yeah, I know what you're doing. You're looking at the small details, where it's made, how many grams. You're calculating mathematics, XYZ math, and you're looking at the details, the numbers, all the little details written on it. I said, exactly. He said, yeah, I know what you're doing and why you do that, but it looks weird to neurotypicals. So I said, yeah. He does. So learning my difference over the years, and learning to manage the characteristics, because there's no, of course, this triggers past lives memories. I am a mystic. I believe in reincarnations. If I would have been a millionaire, I would have done, of course, repair this here. Or bought it as a house for my anonymous friend. If I would have been a billionaire, I would have, with my own hands, I would have gotten this building, bought it. I wonder who owns it. The Empress Theater, because I believe that's my anonymous friend there in a past life. My anonymous friend in ancient Egypt as a priestess, as I was a priestess as well. So I was a priestess myself, and this is what I would do, you know. I would have actually, with workers, I would have hired people to do it, and we would have refurbished all of this, because it's such a waste architecturally. And years ago, there was some work done, but I don't know, there wasn't no follow-up. I don't know whatever happened, because they were raising funds, but it could have been done something nice, you know, with the construction workers, and I would have turned it into a house for her. Anyways, I like the facade, the facade in front of it. Just gonna go get some incense, and then we're back in business. Hi. I'm just here for some incense. That's some incense. Got some incense. Not too many, 3, but I guess I want to go spend some money there. Next time I'm gonna get a rock and roll song. I write rock and roll songs, and I want to get some rock and roll shirts, t-shirts, but not many, because they're expensive. And as Mike can afford, you know, if I can afford to get, I'm gonna get. I got 13 seconds, plenty of time. 11 seconds, 11, 9, 8. Dragon rocket about to launch in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rocket has launched successfully, and that's how we got. And I would like to support that rock shop, that rock shop there, because it's got a good one, It's got a good one, and it's got a little bit of that rock and roll, and I would like to support independent rock. I try to engage a bit in conversation, but it's not always easy for us. But rock and roll, I like rock and roll, geopolitics, and sports and fitness. But sports and fitness from an Aspiesque people love, I guess. And I've been on a fitness journey, and North Americans are my family, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, always for the 10, the 50, and the 3. Hey, look at that, for the 63. Because Granddaddy Trump, Canada has now won 13, right? 10 provinces, 3 territories. So best if we fuse as 13 original states, my way best, as a new reformed Imperial Republican Constitution to go on the banquet at the Mount Royal and to do the compromise. The American-Canadian compromise, and our fusion thereof will resemble the North American civilizational complex's realities. It's always for the 10, the 50, and the 3, which yours truly. Always for the 10, the 50, and the 3 for yours truly, and that is just, of course, the relationships where we got now to be correlated about, and that is something which we have now to be relationships about, and that's where we counterimpose our explanatory manners, what we got, and to commence and discuss an in-depth geopolitics after geopolitical revision, theories, and formulation of strategies, of course, because I build North American strategies for the North American collective. Because we are a collective, a North American civilizational complex, which is not totally divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. So that is to remember that we're not totally divorced, but we are distinct from Western civilization. So always keep that in mind as a strategy, as an analysis of strategy, and of course where we're gonna take it, of course, to the next level in these times that we are now. So the basis, the fundamental reality is that we live now in such a scenario where, of course, I have predicted the scenario myself, so I predicted what's happening now, to be correlated, of course, in the dynamic representation, so that is something where we have, of course, now to be in relations, and we got to get it on that drill, and that's what it is, and we're going to just pause here, and just finalize the discussion on Asperger's. High-functioning autism is, of course, a correlative relation, and, of course, being that we're different, we see the world differently. So we have trouble in social communication sometimes with us. Aspiesque things have to be more straightforward and direct, such as instructions and discussions and things we have to do, things we have to engage in. For example, at the workplace, things have to be explained the proper way, exactly the tasks, which of course have to be done with that, and the tasks which have to be correlated in the domains where we are now to be related upon. So that, of course, relationship for us Aspies, since we're a tiny small minority, you gotta compute just the monstrosity of the level of unemployment is 80%, being that it's 80%. So that is monstrous. 80%, 80% is a monstrous level of unemployment. So, of course, all that monstrosity where it is now is to be that we are to remedy, of course. So, of course, that is the that is the relationship, of course, to establish this concordia. So the concordia is the relationship is that you have You neurotypicals, you have a way of seeing the world through your lens, and we have a way to seeing the world and processing information. However, we Aspies, I look at this house, I would love to give it to my anonymous friend, and I would live in it 50-50. I guess it's maybe the reddish, and there's some red and white type of beauty to it. It's marvelous to me, but nonetheless, red car perfect. But we do have certain problems, and those problems come in these are the main problems which Aspies encounter in life. Lack of friends, or lack of not necessarily making friends, but keeping them long term. So socializing can be difficult for Aspies. It's not always easy to socialize. Not always easy. An Aspie might get there through practice and reading a book such as Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, but it would be in a different way, right? It would be in a different way, correlative, So that's a book that I recommend, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, So Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, is something which we have to correlate. So the other preposition is Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. The other preposition, or rather fundamental difficulty, is also that see the river. I gotta salute now, the truck is on the road. See how my brain now, I look at this, and of course I see it from a mathematical scientific perspective, and that mathematical scientific perspective is that my brain is trying to do an analysis of the expenses of the gas, and the prices vary, right? So in other words, like I said before, I pray that there's always mathematics going on. Oh, that's dangerous. Look at that. That's a big one there. Again, if somebody comes fast in that and they carry a child, that's also very bad. Our roads are very, very bad in the metropolis. That's why we need to mass invest in a mass public-private partnership, but it takes brains and muscle, because money, financing enables us to do, right? Financing enables us to do something, to do work. That's why money serves a purpose: to buy, to sell, to trade, to buy, to sell, to trade. That's why money has a fundamental purpose. So the purpose of money is a fundamentality to our civilizational complex, right? So of course, the relationship where we have now in the domain where we got it is that we are on the verge of also a financial, economic potential collapse, catastrophe. That is a possibility today for that to occur, right? It's not just in the realm of speculation anymore because of the situation where we are now. So we have certain problems. So those certain problems are lack of friends, or making friends, long-term friends. The other problem can be, or is, keeping jobs, because we are different, and in the workplace is made for neurotypical. So we might do something or say something direct without meaning to offend or be offensive or trigger, or we might just say things, and that's we are, that's we are. And that's just how we are. So, but we learn, you tell us, and most Aspies will just do it. We would do it. You would explain it clearly in clear language. You would explain clearly in clear language what is required, and then we would do, right? Because we are, well, at least myself, I like to do. I'm also a doer in many ways, I'm also a doer, right? So, for example, when I was working, and because I have tats, somebody as I work with the elderly, which I did another intervention, which was great. Of course, that was the correlative aspect what we have now. So, but I did that intervention specifically, of course, to get the elderly woman to get her to be stabilize her head because she was in a wheelchair. She was 93, I believe, and it didn't have a protector for the head. She was leaning with her neck all the time towards the sky, towards the ceiling. She was looking. The adjuster for the head was missing. It was missing. So I did the intervention, and the next day when I went to work, Dad placed her head in the proper way because she was missing the. Let me show you. So, the chair, because she was elderly, like 93 years old. 93 years old. And there's my great granny, I guess. I consider all Canadians and brothers and sisters in the 50 states. My great family here, Quebecers, North Americans, and all ALL who come to join us. But she was always like this, with her head. I mathematically I saw it. I say, hey, with also my way of compassion, but I analyzed mathematically right away. I said that is too much pressure for the head to be constantly like that, and the neck to be constantly like that. So enjoying food and enjoying drinking, that would have been a problem for the little time she has left, the little time she has left with that. So of course that is a great intervention in this year. So see right away, mathematically, I said that's no. Is a risk, an adverse effect due to the gravity pulling, and then it was adjusted, and the little hold, like head holder, I guess, was placed, and it all required a head holder to hold her head straight, right, or just adjust it a little bit, because it was always like this. So that was horrible. I remember that was horrible. It was really horrible situation. So my intervention did some good, and I was required, of course, to put nice red. I was required, of course, the worker, one of the supervisor, whatever, manager asked me to put long sleeves to cover my tats, and I said I understood. I guess it's a generational thing, and I didn't object. I said sure. I guess it's not a problem for me since I give during those hours that I'm there. During those hours that I am there. During those hours that I am there. And I said that's all. During those hours that I'm present there, that's it. During those hours that I am there, fundamentally, that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing, to get it on the go. So that is, of course, the relationships where we got now, to be correlative in all the relationships, and the aspect where we got now. That intervention did some good, So that is always something which I gotta be transformative at. So that is something which we gotta get it on the go. So that relationship is, of course, fundamentally, in essence, an analysis, which is putting into practice a scientific Aspiesque brains, or the mathematical methodology employed for me to do that intervention, such as I did the intervention earlier, right? So we are different, right? We are different. We execute the world and how we interact with the world in a different way, Here, for example, I saw the car, the angle, I said it is a velocity that's proximity, so there's always these mathematics which are going on in the head, correlated. So all that aspects where we are now, to be correlated about, and to be, of course, mindful that due to the potholes, see? There's potholes everywhere. I'm gonna get out of the way here. See, there it is. There it is, the pothole. It's a big one, of course, so that is the correlation where we are, Right. There it is. This one I love a lot, you know. This one I love a lot. This one I love a lot, you know. This one I love a lot there. I love it so much. There's a beautiful mathematical symmetry to it, eh? You see the poles and the relationship, at least I see it in such a way. So, yeah, I would love to get the house for me and my anonymous friend. So back to Asperger's, yeah. There's one problem with unemployment, making friends, not necessarily making friends, but keeping friends and keeping employment, and not necessarily getting the jobs, right? Because we might get the jobs, it's just keeping the jobs. Long-term employment. Isolation, self-harm, self-bullying. Also, another point which I gotta make is the Great Depression and suicidalness. Look at the twins. There's a very high, I was there years and years ago. I was depressed, I was suicidal for like 2 years and a half, almost 3 years. Like end of 2014 till mid 2017, more than 2.5 years. Depressed, suicidal. What got me out of depression was crossing Canada coast to coast, and that's when I established the strongest Accord with my fellow Canadians. 2017. That's when although my brothers and sisters in the 50 states, because on the list, if I travel somewhere else, is going to be the Grand Canyon. Look at that beautiful. See how we're atop the mountain now? We're on the West Mountain, one of the 3 peaks of the 3-mountain system called West Mountain. We always we have this routine, say Aspiesque and myself included, of course, we have these ritual-like routines for years and years and years. I go to the mountain, I meditate, I rock and roll, I come back, I go to the mountain. It's miles and kilometers away from my place. It takes me hours to go and to come back, but I do it sometimes summer, sometimes I do it daily, Monday to Friday, even Saturday, 6 times in a row sometimes. Spring, summer, autumn. Sometimes I go to the river and you can see the beauty of the sunset there. It's an island, metropolis island where I live, and not a lot of us are like myself who have Asperger's. There's a tiny minority, less than 1%. Less than 1%. Officially, half are officially diagnosed. So less officially are, of course, half are diagnosed officially. So, of course, only half are officially diagnosed, and I'm part of those, I guess. I always say I'm semi-officially diagnosed because several individuals who have experience in the healthcare system and healthcare providers have told me, and I wanted to do further applications, but the cost is so expensive, $1,200, and, you know, that's my big stress now, financial. What a beautiful sunset. There's always a sunset and a sunrise, eh? What a beautiful sunset here. And this is another house I really like. I would love to be 50-50 with my anonymous friend on this one. 50-50. 50-50. To give 50-50 with that, eh? Yeah, my anonymous friend Amika could live here. I wish I could get her a house, to be honest. That's why I'm auctioning those red gloves. She got me those red gloves in 2018 when I started challenging Granddaddy Trump. I'm going to get into that, but just going to finish on Asperger's because it's important. So those are the problems. High suicidal rates. And again, what got me out of depression was crossing Canada coast to coast in 2017, August. Me and my anonymous friend, we embarked on a 3.5-day journey by bus to go from here, Montreal to Vancouver. See how we're atop the mountain? You can see it goes down, and there it still goes up on the West Mount Peak, one of the 3 peaks of the mountain system called Mount Royal proper. You have West Mount, one peak, Outremer, one peak, another peak is 3 peaks. 3 of them, and Mount Royal proper. So here we are atop West Mount, going to the other peak, Mount Royal proper, but we are atop of the mountain now, which you can see afar off. So, high depression and suicidal rates, very high, 7, 8, 9 times higher. So what got me out of depression again and being suicidal was crossing Canada coast to coast It was 3.5 days by bus that we went. A bus ride, 3.5 days. Can you imagine? We switched bus several times over, and that's when I had a revelation. I said, wow, such a great country. Coast to coast, coast to coast, such a great country to see and to do, and of course to co-evaluate and be, of course, in the relationships where we are now. But such a great country. And I had a revelation, and I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. And ever since then, I started working out, training, exercising, and I did lots of work, especially artistic, athletic, and geopolitical 24/7. And parallel, also, the other situational aspects what we got now is that in that same year, 2017, when I came back, there's another monster. Look at that. Wow, that big, man. Oh, wow, that's dangerous. Somebody comes fast and they have children and the children bumps its head and the tourists come and they're not going to come. That's a danger. Lots of rainbow on the neck.
I know.
Rainbow, I like that rainbow on the neck. It's so nice. It goes rotation, and I was trying to figure out the pattern, mathematical pattern, and I'm part of the neurodivergence, and I'm androgynous, pansexual. I'm a mystic. I believe in reincarnation. So many times I was born a man, a woman, a woman, a man, man, a woman, a woman, a man. And of course, I was trying to see how the pattern, eh? Look at that. Look at this. This looks like a war zone here. This looks like a war zone. If somebody comes fast here, the potholes, wow. And you have a big one right there, see? This is all public, and my brothers were millionaires, billionaires. You need to find us my ideas, visions, missions for the Dancing Goddess in the Dragon Kingdom, the North American Collective. For the North American Collective in the public proper partnership, of course, way to co-evaluate and co-balance, of course, the correlational capabilities, of course, in the domains where we are to coexist now. But that is, of course, the reality that our roads need rebuilding and all the infrastructure across the North American Collective. So, finalizing on Asperger's, we are different, we are weird, and it takes effort, time, and patience. I don't want to waste your time, or don't waste mine, please. I don't want to waste anybody's time. If you're black or white or black or rainbow, if you're a man or a woman and you're 18 plus, we can grade out and rainbow it. But you got to be 18 plus for that. I'm always open and for friends with benefits, or parallel, of course. Pledge your allegiance. Thou art family. Pledge your allegiance. Thou art family. Pledge your allegiance. Thou art family. And that's how we got, of course, to be correlated. So, of course, another parallel, of course, fundamental parallel, is that Asperger's, we can live social isolation. Right? Social isolation because of our difference. However, I put in parentheses, it's not a mental illness, so it's not a mental illness, but in parentheses, there's the dedie, the double dedie, the disorder and disability. Yes. So there's a dedie, double disorder and disability. In another parentheses, that disorder and disability, in certain cases, social communications and knowledge of social, for example, personal space can be difficult. Personal space, Personal space can be difficult. Personal space. So we might breach personal space, right? Yeah, there's buttholes also there. They get bigger, right? Personal space issues, we tend to breach them, and that's how we got, of course, with the doing and the doing, and that's how we got, of course, to get it left and the right and in the middle, of course, correlated, of course, to the Republican affairs where we are now to be correlated. But of course, that dimension is the dimension of the multiplicity of the events in the life of an Aspie, which interact in a daily basis, then a long-term basis, and such. So I don't want to get too intellectual about it, but nonetheless, now is what basically matters for me, because since I survived COVID back in 2020, survived COVID back in 2020, I had COVID in February, which I'm going to start celebrating over the weekend. I was really sick, mid-February till mid-March 2020, 6 years ago. Ever since then, I lived Carpe Diem, and years and years ago, I also survived a vicious surprise attack. I was hit in the head, hit my head on the concrete and was all bloodied up. I had a dislocated right shoulder, right arm. I went all bloodied up to the emergency room office department at the Jewish General Hospital, and I gave a new deadline, last deadline, I guess, third and final deadline for this one, by March 19th/20th. March 19th/20th. By March 19th/20th to go, of course, and to retrieve the archives at the Jewish General Hospital where I went, because that's where I went all blooded up, and they had cracked my right arm back, They had cracked my right arm back. Well, it was dislocated, right? So they had, of course, cracked it back and crack. And I was put in a cast. My right arm was put in a cast, So I put in a cast, and I was given some medications. Oh, I'll get it from my anonymous friend. This one here. If I have $1 million, I'm gonna give her half. $1 billion, gonna give her half. Buy her a house at least. That's what I could do if I get some millions, at least a house, and make that covered for that. Oh wow, this is a dangerous one. Oh no, this is super dangerous here. This is, whoa. Look how deep that one is. Oh no, if somebody comes fast in that's a monster. That's a monster. Look at that. If somebody comes fast in that one, that's a monster pothole. So big. That one is dangerous for driving if you have kids and children and you come fast there, You come fast there, and that's what it is. And yeah, wow. If some people don't know and they come visit from the 50 states and they get into that at night and they get a flat tire, then you get that flat tire. And they get, of course, the flat tire in it. And that's what it is with that. And they're not going to come back. So it's in our interest, I see how my Aspiesque brain now works. I was trying to, of course, I would need measuring tape, but I was trying to do the circumference, kind of. You have to do the circumference there, right? You have to know the ratio, though. The ratio is twice the diameter. So, well, it's half correction. The diameter is twice the ratio. Diameter is twice the ratio. Yeah, the diameter is twice the ratio. So we have to measure point to point, and we'll get an estimate, and then half of the diameter. Then we can get the circumference. I love that stuff. It's an Aspiesque love, however. But there's mathematics behind fixing the potholes, because the exact number of cement will be required, XYZ, etc., etc., etc. But it takes brains and it takes some sweat to do it. I see now, for example, I see that it's safer for me to, although there's a possibility of cars coming from that side, so I gotta be careful for my safety. I'm just gonna apply the principles 4 steps to the left, 4 steps to the right for my safety, her safety, and her liberty, freedom to go with the little dog. It's not a little dog, but it's a bigger one. And her safety, liberty, is the dog has to go out to do the doings, and I have to go to my mountain because I'm an Aspiesque, and that's my second home, and that's my ritual routine, and that's what I've been doing for years and years and years, and that's what I do every day. Geopolitics, workout, train, exercise, and rock and roll. Geopolitics, dancing is my favorite sport. Rock and rolling, and that's just how I have these ritual routines which Aspiesque we do. So learn about Asperger's by reading Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, and also another book which I recommend as a secondary one, Teaching Asperger's Students Social Skills Through Acting. All their world is a stage. Teaching Asperger's students social skills through acting. All their world is a stage. Oh, not the potholes. My goodness. That's why. See, even you millionaires, billionaires who drive, you also drive to work to make those millions. You took advantage of the public highways, the public buses, the public transportation, the public aqueducts. That's why it requires a mass public-private partnership fundamentally for us to move forward in the North American collective. So I crossed Canada coast to coast in 2017. I have the tickets. In August, we went to BC, Vancouver, by bus. We came back in September of that same year, 2017. We went to Nova Scotia. And of course, we went to Halifax by train, 25 hours and 44 minutes. And of course, 25 hours and 44 minutes by train. That's where we went to Nova Scotia. And we came back. So crossing Canada coast to coast in 2017 was the moment when that event in my life, I love going back to that memory. That's when I got out of depression as being suicidal. I'm going to keep updating information in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead to see when did I go to the emergency department, all bloodied up with a dislocated right arm shoulder, because I survived a vicious surprise attack, and it was homicidal in nature. It was homicidal in nature. There was no warning whatsoever. That would have been an automatic expulsion from any sports league, NHL, National Hockey League, NFL, National Football League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB. Please give some charity. Owners, and players, and reduce the tickets by 44.9%, and finance the firefighters, give them some tickets, and finance the public workers of North America a little bit of massage therapy sessions, and get that N.A.C.W.P. Continental, and that's all we got. So the N.A.C.W.P, the North American Collective Workers Party, and that's all we got to get together, and that's how we got to do it, That's how we have to get the complementarity of it, and that's what we have, of course, to get on the correlations what we got now. And of course, all that fundamentals is the explanation of the relationships of which we are to address. And I'm just going to get out of the way for my fellow citizens to pass safely for their safety and my safety. I just stayed there. I calculated mathematically that it's safer for me to just move, stand still, and then proceeding, because they were close to each other, and now we're in the public, so we got those added responsibilities, duties, and obligations vis-a-vis each other. You vis-a-vis me, and me vis-a-vis you, myself as a androgynous, pansexual, Aspiesque artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, strategist, and intellectual, and citizen. And that has to be counterbalanced. And of course, turning the heads left and right is a requirement. Turning the heads left or right is a requirement, because you never know, the brakes might malfunction, the electricity might malfunction, the citizen driver might press by mistake the accelerator instead of the brakes. So those are as contingencies and as possible realities. For extra safety, I do recommend turning your heads left and right whenever you cross the street. So as a citizen who's willing, as a neurodivergent citizen who's also willing to build bridges, whether small, medium, large, extra large bridges, small, medium, large, extra large bridges with the fellow neurotypicals as well, because I'm willing to build bridges, and I'm more equipped, have the tools, better tools to build those bridges with a small, medium, large, extra large. Just like when you order coffee, fry, or pizza, I would have to budget. I don't have enough money to do it, maybe not. I would actually enjoy 3 big hamburgers, just 3 big hamburgers, just munching on those 3 big hamburgers right now. But I'm grateful because I got some cold cuts. It costs below $10, so I got 3 different ones for below $8. Below 8. It cost $8.90. So tomorrow with my anonymous friend, we're going to watch a movie. Last Saturday we watched Noah. And I think I saw Noah 11 years ago, 2015. Around February 2015 at the Dollar Cinema. I used to go in my own neighborhood. It was a $1 cinema, $1 for the popcorn, $1 for the drink, $1 for the movie. But it went defunct a few years ago, so it didn't operate again. But it was a few years, and yeah, I'm gonna keep on betting. So I survived that vicious surprise attack. It was a homicidal in nature. I guess they tried to take me out. Person. Well, it wasn't they. It was just one tall person. I'm not afraid of y'all gangsters. I don't like violence at all. I do not like violence. I don't like violence at all. I am hypervigilant. I am hypervigilant. You know, hypervigilance. I do have it. I guess PTSD for sure. With my scars and so many scars on the body and all those scars where we got to live with. But some scars heal well, eh? Some scars heal well. So if you want to kiss my scars, friends with benefits, 18 for that kiss. 18 plus, black, white, or rainbow, man or woman, you know. Many past lives I was born. A man, a woman, a man, a woman. Not the big one, not the monster there. I was born in the USA, another monster. This, if you're jogging, you don't know about this one, that could be dangerous as well. And of course, that's the relationship. Oh my gosh, here also it's got a bombardment. Looks like it was bombarded there. Wow. Pothole Central. Wow, Pothole Central. Right, so yeah, maybe I was attacked because I'm different, because of, I guess in certain things I am retarded or dummy, stupid, or disorderly and disabled, but in certain things I'm not. I do have my special skills, and I'm gonna update when did I go to the emergency room, all bloodied up, banged up, bloodied up, survived, and maybe it was because of one of the songs, because I write LGBTQ songs. One of it was like, I like, black and white it. Give me that homo, Julius Caesar, do it for the legions of my homos. I got a rock and roll song which is mixes the words black, white, and rainbow. Do it for my homos. Black and white and rainbow, Julius Caesar. Great iron, Julius Caesar. Like the legions. Like that homo. Oh, speaking of. Nope. No, it's not the right one. No, it has to be different flowers. And I was there as a woman, as a man in ancient Roman Republic, Roman Empire, ancient Egypt as a priestess. I was the priestess Pythia who orated the great Ritria to Lycurgus. I was born in the United States 3 times post 1776. Once as a woman, twice as a man. Look at the snake caught inside here with the head, see? And I served in the same United States Armed Forces twice. Two different wars. Same United States Armed Forces. The wars were 156 years apart. 156 years apart. The wars. But in the same army. I recommend reading one of my favorite poems, Through a Glass Darkly. That is one of my favorite poems of all time. It's called Through a Glass Darkly. And there George Patton discusses his beliefs in reincarnations. In reincarnations. His belief in reincarnation. He believed in reincarnations. George Patton, the general. And of course, myself, I also do. And I was a man, a woman, a man, a woman, a man, a woman, a man. You get that 50-50 now. Adrian Hana Dragon. Rebirthing during discovery with a new name. Still financially stressed, officially yet to change my name, but Adrian Hana Dragon, you know. Keep it out of your mouth if it's not for a blessing. It's always God bless and God is kiss. It's always God bless and God is kiss on the table of our empire. And the new banquet atop the Mount Royal, and let our empire rise and be the mass public power partnership for the North American Collectif N.A.C.W.P. And yeah, I guess I know actually I was safe to do along the way, along in the past 11 years, because I used to live in a very moldy place, far away from here. I wish I could give my anonymous friend a house right here. I could get that one for me, that one for her, or split one 50-50. Split one 50-50, you know. Split one 50-50. If I make $1 million, a few million, $1 billion. First, I'm gonna buy her a house right here on Mount Rose or Ramsey, you know. And buy her a house on Ramsey, right here, maybe on Ramsey and Mount Rose, somewhere here, either or. Doesn't matter, whichever street, Ramsey or Mount Rose, it doesn't really matter the street, but maybe here, that one, Mount Rose, or get that there, and or this one we could split 50-50, but it's not for sale. But this one, half me, half her, that would be perfect right here. I'll be very close to the mountain, but I would also go to the other mountain, Outrama. Well, the whole mountain is 3 peaks, right? Mount Royal is the whole mountain here, right between the east and the west, but south. So it's right between the east and the west, but it's south on the island of the Hawk Island of the Hawk, H-A-W-K. That's where we are, and we're surrounded by a big river. So back to what I was discussing. I was safe to do what I call several independent citizen security interventions. Several independent security interventions. The independent citizen security interventions, independent citizen security action and intervention both. Since I know that's why I was saved. I didn't die in that moldy place. I didn't even have a bathtub, I used to live in like a small prison cell. It was not a prison cell, but it was like one in many ways without being officially a prison cell. I didn't even have a bathtub. Yesterday I took a bath. Thursday, like 45-minute bath, and that felt good. And maybe I'm gonna take one over the weekend, and that's gonna be good. And that's gonna be rock and rolling, and that's gonna be on that left, and in the right, and in the middle, and that's why we are, and that's what we do, and that's how we got categorized, and that's of course the dimensions where we live and where we are and where we be. And I love that lights, and getting of course for the lights there, and the strategical representation of the dynamics of discussing the events of today being the lucky 13th, or Friday 13th for me is lucky. Great day of healing, meditation, and for me is lucky 13. Lucky 13, the book of 13, I guess. But I'm gonna keep updating. I'm really curious, when did I go to the emergency department in the Jewish General Hospital? Years and years ago, and I moved from that moldy place in summer 2010. So I've been living where I live now 10 years. I moved there with nothing, I had nothing when I moved. I have a high school diploma, but in terms of anything else, no. I had I don't know. It's probably in the book. I'm pretty sure I put it as a sign in a book between like 2013 maybe and 2019. I had a banknote from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. From the Austro-Hungarian Empire, I had it. There was some with a I don't know, from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and I had copies of years and years and years ago. That banknote is probably in a book that I loaned over the years. From the Jewish General Hospital. Not from the Jewish General Hospital, from the Jewish public libraries. I used to go to the Jewish public library. This time it's not the Jewish General Hospital, but the Jewish public library. Or the most that I used to go to is the public libraries, the Bibliothèque et Archives Nationales. So every week I was renting books, loaning books for years and years and years. I would say I spent 1 foot in the street and 1 foot in the libraries. And I lived in that moldy place there. And I'm pretty sure that what happened to that banknote, Austro-Hungarian currency, is in one of those books for years and years ago. I put it maybe as a note. And maybe it's still somewhere in one of those books that I rented in 2013, 2014, 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. Because after COVID, I didn't go much to the libraries. And also my copies of my birth certificate. For I know, I guess I could be born under the Pentagon or Berlin. Well, if it's 1984, east or west, or Lugos, Transylvania. Sounds more like a fantasy, vampiric fantasy. But I died here. I'm being reborn here, 2020. Wow, I'm going to be celebrating 6 years. And for I know, I could have been born here on the mountain, Mount Royal, as I was in previous incarnations when I lived as a woman here between 1788 and 1835. 1788 and then I lived in the early 1700s, and I was born a man and woman several times, and that was the 13th of February, and I survived. And I gotta get on that goal, and I have trouble remembering my life prior to early 2014, January, February 2014, late 2013. It was like a blackouts. So retrograde amnesia. I have problems. Amnesia, officially. And when you have memory loss, personal life events memory loss, you don't lose knowledge and skills, mathematical skills or linguistic skills, because they're not ingrained, or the memories are not formed they're not formed at the same spot. Those memories are not formed in that area of the brain. With linguistic skills, or when you learn languages or when you learn mathematics, you're not learning those mathematical or language skills, because I speak several languages. You're not learning them in the same equilibrium, so you're not learning, of course, in the same equilibrium what we got now, of course, to discuss this technical representation, where we are to discuss the formalities or the implications of memory loss, because sometimes memory comes back, but it could be due to PTSD, or it could be the mold there. It was very moldy. It could be drugs and alcohol. Maybe I was a junkie, or it could be not just drugs and alcohol, but it could be also trauma. For example, that vicious surprise attack, and just blackouts of memory and stuff like that. But I have a very good memory of the past 11 years, with my scars, 11 years. And, as an Aspie, I have to be careful, because it's been a long journey, and sometimes I had to appear because in front of the court of law that is discussed in the book there, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. There's a whole chapter dedicated on that application of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that we're different, so certain accommodations and pardons and all those things have to be accorded to Asperger's, Aspies, people with HFA on the spectrum, because of non-written social rules and conventions, and can be more difficult, and sometimes we breach those conventions, social conventions. We might not even know that, and we have to understand it fully sometimes, that's in the criminal code, and that's in the in the code civil here, as we have in the common law code civil. So that we have the common law and the code civil. So we have several situations where we are to be involved with such cases as, we have to get the appellation and the relationships where we are now to be correlated about. So those correlations that we are now are just to be extra careful, and I always let people know and about Asperger's in the ways, capacities that I can fully absorb it myself, the absorption and the integration of my neurodivergence fully in the mandatory manners where we are to be related with the other neurotypicals, when we are to be involved and to get, of course, the correlations what we got now. So back, of course, on the technical aspects where we got now to be representative of the facts and the markings, of course, of where we are in the current project of building the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, being the Imperial Republic where we are now to be consequented, and in appellations where we are now, So that is just the reality of everything that revolves around being an Aspie, and myself as an individual Aspie, and we are different, and thus we look at the world differently, and we're going to go all the way to the top of the mountain, my second home here. You can enter it by several places. Here we're going to enter by I'm coming from the west, right? I'm coming towards the east, and then I'm going to go back towards the west. So it's always going east or west, west or east or west, or north or south. As we reach the mountain here, my second home, the Belvedere Conjure Neck, we're now going to let everything that... but I'm going to finish on the knowledge, the wisdom of why I know that I was saved from dying of COVID, from dying in that moldy place. I call it a prison cell where I used to live in Codeneige. It wasn't really a prison cell, but it was like a prison cell, of course. So, of course, because it was lots of mold, that is, of course, the relationships, of course, of where we are, today. So, having survived that vicious surprise attack, I did small, big, or very large interventions, such as I did earlier and yesterday, such as, of course, the citizen intervention, of course, to be formulated in the domains. So, of course, all that is to be correlated to a grand one, which I did in 2016. So we're going to go back in time in 2016. Now we're going to go back in time in 2016. 2016, right? So now, in 2016, smiley face, in 2016, that's when I did a grand, what I call the grandest yet, Imperial Citizen Security Intervention, Imperial Citizen Security Action, which I formulate for the future in a strategical manner to be developed and suffused and completely integrated in, as we're going to fuse Canada and the United States. And suffice it to say, as I said in all videos when I come here, I love this architecture. Lots of mathematics, geometry, arithmetic right here. So in 2016, and I get goosebumps whenever I discuss it, I discovered in a freely distributed newspaper here in Montreal, in Côte des Neiges, close to the Maxi on Côte des Neiges Street in a library. In 2016, I went, and in a freely distributed newspaper, it had a title. Newspaper was called something Hawash, Voice of the People. Inside that newspaper, there was an article which was a few pages, 4 pages, is Islamic State propaganda. The Islamic State terror group. I know when I discuss it, it was so horrible an event, and my memory, it was so horrible. That event was just horrible. And of course, the Islamic State, they displayed a brutality, right, in their warfare strategies. The brutality and overall brutality was unmatched even to this day. And they lay dormant from between 2018 and 2025, about last year, 3.5 months ago. Wow, isn't this amazing? The rock formation there. For more than 7 years, they lay dormant. And about 3.5 months ago, they struck again. they struck again. Their terror. They resurged. They came back from their deserts, from their tunnels, from their dungeons, from wherever in the shadows they were hiding. But in 2016, they were really active, right? In 2016, they were active. They were active, and they had, of course, they had declared their caliphate. They had declared their caliphate in June 2014. So in this newspaper, I couldn't believe it. How come it got published? I don't know if the editor read it before publishing it. Did they read it? Or they just published without even knowing that the author had wrote a 4-page article, on behalf of the Islamic State terror group, and the Islamic State terror group. So that event in my life, of course, was so horrible in nature, that, of course, was back to, and of course there was an intelligence failure, right? There was an intelligence savior. There was an intelligence savior. There was an intelligence failure. An intelligence failure, right? So that intelligence failure is, of course, the relationships what we got now correlated, correlated. So that was an intelligence failure on behalf of the SPVM and the RCMP and CSIS. Our local, national, federal, the RCMPs like the FBI and CSIS. And I actually wrote in consequence to CSIS, and I got exactly the letter dated from that same year, 2016. So of course, all of that, and plus, right away when I discovered the article, I went right away, without any hesitation, right? I went straight marching to the RCMP headquarters because as geopolitically, right, they are still a relevant group, worldwide, international, global, geopolitically, and I'm sure I saved my fellow Canadians from a mass casualty event. Domestic terrorism. Hundreds, maybe, potentially. Tens for sure, potentially hundreds of people. I couldn't believe it. I have goosebumps now when I discuss it. I didn't even hesitate. I took several newspapers from the library there. I marched a few hours, lots of kilometers from there, a lot far away, about 11 kilometers, 13.3, maybe 13.4 that way, from there, from the library to the RCMP headquarters with the documents. And I did what I call the Citizen Security Report, officially, technically, what I call the Independent Citizen Security Action, the Independent Citizen Security Initiative, the Independent Citizen Security Action, the Independent Citizen Security Action, or the Independent Citizen Security Intervention. Intervention or action, basically, they refer to the same action. So I did not even hesitate. And don't hesitate, if you see things like this. That's why we have to fuse the RCMP and the FBI. We had to fuse the RCMP and the FBI, my way best, into the IPS, Imperial Police Service, based on my new Total 911, Dragon Integrated Security, Citizen Integrated Security, the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, which includes the new 911 Dragon Total protocols. I discuss it often for years and years and years. My initiatives, protocols have been discussed, and this is one of it. This is one of it, which has to be, this, I prevented a mass terrorist attack. I'm proud of that, and I'm proud I did it, because the children are innocent. Children could have died. Because if it would have kept being published, of course, if it would have been kept being published, then of course we would have been, being hit by those who would have heeded the call of that terrorist group, and of course they would have heeded the call to attack us, because that's what that was calling for, That's what that was calling for, hey? That's what that was calling for, of course. That's what that was calling for. So that's what that was calling for, That was the horrible part of it. That was the horrible relations, and that's what it is now, so that's what we got. Take some action. So if I would have not taken action to March, and I took time from my time and some sweat, he would have stayed there. It would have been published, and of course it would have been published with that, and that's where we gotta get that correlation, of course, in the aspects of the domains, and that, of course, is the relationships what we got now to be correlated, of course, in all the domains. So, of course, all that categorically, to be put, of course, in place, and to establish this great corporation, and to establish this great cooperation, of course, with the coefficiency and the efficiency where we got now, to get it on the go and to do it, and it takes action to do it, eh? So that's what it is with that, and that's what we got, for the left and the right, and in the middle, of course, to get it for now, and that's gonna be, and that's just what it's gonna be, and that's when I saved it, of course, from the civilizational products, and that, of course, was the civilizational products in all that left and right and in the middle, and of course, gotta check a little bit of the horse manure there. That's good fertilizer, but you can go, of course, get it there, and you can go ski there. I love to watch skiing, artistic skiing, and see the beautiful sunset, of course, with that, and here a joyous occasion to get a little bit of snow if you want to get a little bit of snow sports, and can come here, and you got the skiing there. I love it. And you got sliding there. They slide down, and that's taken care of by the public workers. And there, of course, you got the patinage, you got the skating ring going on, and some people jogging, and that's what we got now to be correlated, and that's super fun. So as for them, my intervention, which was done, of course, for them, the affairs of the left and the right and in the middle, and the children of the empire. The children of the empire having some fun. Gotta salute the youth, because they're innocent, so, and they have some fun with that, and that's what it is. So, of course, all that domains what we got now, and it's something which we got to be correlated in all the aspects of integration of our security forces and citizenry for this great fusion which is to come between as our common manifest destiny, Canada and United States, as we constitute a new collective civilizational complex. I don't want to get too philosophical, intellectual, or academic into relationships what we got now to be here, and that's what it is, and that's where we go, and that's why we got to get on that drills, always to represent the relationships where we are now, to get that domains, for the left and the right, and in the middle, Fit. So that's just the relations which we have to establish and incorporate, and my philosophy, which is a strategy and a call to action. If you do have those concerns for security, what I call technically philosophically the independent citizen security action, or independent citizen security initiative, independent citizen security action, or independent citizen security initiative. And of course, the independent citizen security action or initiative is the complementarity of everything which we have to be today. And I am in this big island, so in the big metropolis, top 10, 6th or 7th most populated in North America. So fundamentally, potentially, maybe saved hundreds of people, right? Because that was Islamic State propaganda on behalf of the Islamic State. I get goosebumps when I discuss that. It was just so horrible. I read it. It was calling right straightforward pledge allegiance. It was calling people to pledge allegiance to the Islamic State. The article that I took the whole newspaper to the RCMP, here headquarters in Montreal, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which is the co-equivalent of the FBI, and of course, I guess, after I haven't seen the newspaper being published in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead of that, I haven't seen the newspaper being published in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. I did not see it being published. So, of course, all that is to say where we have to be related and to integrate ourselves and to establish our relationship. So where we are now. So all of the relationships, all of the dynamics is that we are to be correlated in the relationships where we establish ourselves, this great concordium, and this great concordium is, of course, not sufficient, but of course is implemented where we got now to correlate ourselves and to take firm action sometimes, and decisive action, such as I did. Because I knew right away. There was no hesitation on my part. And again, I don't know how it got published. And I wrote a letter in concordant to the CSIS, Canadian Security Intelligence Service, which is the equivalent to the CIA, to the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, which is the relationships where we got now, to be correlated, and in the domains where we got to represent ourselves. And of course, that is just the relationships which we're going to establish, of course, in the plurality of our eventuality. Now, so stay alert, stay vigilant, stay loving, stay kind, stay loving, stay vigilant, stay kind, increasing goodness and kindness, and pledge allegiance to our dream, my dream. Well, I don't like violence myself, and we don't need to do violence. We need to encourage people to work out, train, exercise. We need to do the census. We need to get rid of the border. We need to fuse, and we need to fuse in that complementarity where we are now to be the domains, so that is just the relationship and the faculty where we got now to correlate in all the dynamical representations where we are to be suffused in. So that is just the reality of being, and of me having survived, and us having survived COVID, and of us moving forward. And it requires the light and the shadow, the light and the shadow, the light and the shadow. And that is what we're gonna discuss now. My DRT theory, and the DRT, the death row fusion theory, is correlated thereof for the implementation, of course, of being, and that, of course, implementation of being and countervaluing is where we are now to be suffused and incorporated, and of course, being the incorporations where we are now. So that is where we are to be together and in cooperation with that reality where we are now, to be correlated where we are to install our domains, and of course all our domains that we are now is of course the North American Collective, and the North American Collective is the representational aspect of where we are now. So that is of course the reality, of course, to be. That is something where we have to be co-equal and co-representation where we are now. And of course all that domain where we correlate and co-efficiate is of course the strategy for the North American Collective in fundamentality. So of course all that is the complementarity where we got now. So that is something where we got, and that's what we got now to be correlated, and that is where we are. And that is something which we gotta be constantly aware of, such as the privilege of civilization. And the privilege of civilization is that we have this complementarity of having electricity, having highways, electricity, and of course the highways, the electricity where we are now involved in is of course the reality of our totality of the North American Collective. And I love coming here, so I have a big smile. I really love coming here. It's for years and years and years my Aspiesque routine, my second home here, the mountain, Mount Royal. And gotta give a salutation to the truckers, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the electricians, the plumbers, and Hydro-Quebec workers. Gotta look for the stars and see if we can see some satellites. The Leo in a parallel life I built, design supercomputers, satellites, microchips, gadgets, of course, in that correlation what we got now to be incrementally implementing my DRT theory and strategy in the complementarity where we are now, so that is just the reality, right? So that is just the relationship. The DRT, that refusion theory, forget all the other ones. The DRT, of course, is the relationship, the death refusion theory, The death refusion theory where we are now to be co-represented and co-efficient in all the relationship where we are. Now we have to implement the DRT, the death refusion theory, in the category, of course, which exists, and that, of course, existence is the death refusion theory where we categorically be and incline ourselves to the co-efficiency of the DRT to fully implement it strategically ASAP. It will require a public-private partnership, a mass public-private partnership in the domains where we got now, of course, to be suffused and get it on the left and the right and in the middle, and of course in those aspects of our being are that we are co-efficiently and co-directly affected in a negative way in this moment. In Canada and the United States, financially, most are so financially stressed that on the verge of a public financial collapse and living day to day, sometimes week to week, check to paycheck, the vast majority. And our food bank usage has doubled in Canada, so we need to get implementing the debt refusion theory. Red, my favorite color, the pyramid, just in time, I guess. Pledge your allegiance to our family. Pay close attention to the DRT as the bipolar strategy, not to be confused with a psychiatric mental condition, but strictly and merely as a geopolitical strategy for total BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion of the world by the North American Collective, or the fusion of the United States and Canada and the United States into the Imperial Republic complex, or the Imperial Democratic Republic. Imperium coming from the securing of the individual's liberty, sacrosanct, with a mass public-private partnership, which we're going to do, of course, the co-evaluations. And of course, all that reality, where we are now, is of course that is the reality of where we are now. So of course all that is that's my favorite skyscraper there, the pyramid, and we're gonna get to discussing the DRT. Just love that red, my favorite color, And I gotta salute the construction workers, Wow, imagine even here to have water. Just imagine, just to bring water here atop, and of course all that to be atop is something which we got to be correlated about, and being of course the relationships of our bringing water here, which I'm gonna go drink. How did you do it, the engineers? You know, it takes engineers and countervaluants, of course, to be left and right and in the middle, and of course to counter-evaluate, of course, what we have, of course, now to be correlated upon, and to get it, of course, in the relationships where we are now, and that's what it is with that XYZ. So that it is, you know, mom, you suck it. There we go. So here, yeah, do we have water there? We can go with the more Aspiesque calculations, but it's an estimation because the aqueduct probably is somewhere connected over there. But nonetheless, I see the 50 states. The pyramid is red, red, red. My favorite color. I gotta salute the workers, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses. Pledge your allegiance, legions. My allies and armies, pledge your allegiance, legions. Support the dream, always for the firefighters, always for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the electricians, the welders, all those, of course, involved in the production, distribution of food, always coast to coast, ocean to ocean. And that's Orion. That means that Scorpio is there, right? Because Orion, the constellation Orion is right there. The constellation Orion is right there. So that means that, of course, we can pinpoint and see, of course, in low orbit, we can see the satellites. So we can see some of them sometimes where you might flash, but if they are in low orbit, there's a 500-kilometer star. In the parallel life, I build, design supercomputers, super satellites, microchips, all things of telecommunications, such as microchips, gadgets, supercomputers, satellites, microchips, 5G, 6G towers. And I gotta salute the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the firefighters, the electricians, the plumbers, the bakers. And that's my favorite skyscraper there, is red, red, red today. It's for St. Valentine's, just like my favorite color. And construction workers, I love those cranes and who build the bridges. We got a lot of work to do. We got to rebuild the bridges. I'm going to go get some water. I think I can go get some water in time. And I got to salute the truckers, welders, truckers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, electricians. So the DRT, debt refusion theory explained. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, together, right? So all the public and the private debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all the debt, public-private debt, we're going to add it all up. Canadian public-private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, we're going to add it all up, and we're going to convert it into US dollars. This was built in 1930 by Thelema. We need to build the Forgotten Goddess Temple and the Imperial People's Coliseum on the Canadian-US border, and the House of the Dragon Pyramid. But back to the DRT. So it includes, in my DRT, integrates monetary integration theory. So inside integrated in my DRT theory is integrated monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory, which was integrated in the European Union, which was integrated into European Union, which was implemented and integrated in the European Union. So of course that is to do in the relationships what we have now, to be suffused in and to get it, of course, where we are now, and gotta get it for the left, the right, and in the middle. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt, and that's what we're gonna do, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and that's what we're gonna get doing with that. So that's what we're gonna have to do, and that's what we're gonna be doing with that, So that is all the public and the private debt. We're gonna fuse it, we're gonna refuse it, and we're gonna create a new currency. But we have to implement my DRT theory, which again, integrated in my DRT theory, is integrated the monetary integration theory. So that you have to accord and fully understand, right? Fully understand. I'm just gonna go fill my bottle of water. Gonna go downstairs and then do that. So we're gonna take all the public-private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Canada, my $10,000 debt to the RBC. We're gonna convert it into US dollars, add it with the US public-private debt. All that money is gonna be converted with existing money into a new money. We're going to fuse basically the Bank of Canada and the Federal Reserve into the Imperial Central Bank. We're going to issue the new currency, Imperial Dollar, the Imperial Dollar, or the UE, U. Universal, E. Exchange, U. Unit. So it will require a mass public-private partnership to do so, right? So this will require a mass public-private partnership. Of course, my brother Scorpio Bill Gates and our flock safety, Palantir, and all institutions and organizations are invited to create the UE, this new currency, U. Universal, E. Exchange, U. UE. The universal exchange unit is going to have the value of the US dollar. We're going to set an interest rate level of 10%. It's not going to be able to be more than 10% thereafter. So all the debt, public and private debt, converted into US dollars, right? Converted. So we're going to have to do the math mathematically, add it all up. Interesting that that's made in Canada there, see? See, Aspies, sometimes we're concerned with all those details. I don't know what that number means though. See, 7913334. 11 times 4 is 44. Where did I get the 11? Be my guest. Made in Canada, wow. But we got a made in Canada, the DRT, because the king is absent and it's time for the Republic. I'm just going to hydrate water here. Just going to get some water. And continue the discussion. See, there's weird numbers there at the back. That's what Aspies were weird like that. See, let me show you. So we can be weird about those specific numbers there. See those numbers? I guess you can see it blurred a bit, but yeah, Aspies, like I said before, we're sometimes concerned with these weird details. See, there's numbers there. Look, that's 00984 times 06, and in parentheses 825. What does that mean? That's a classification, industrial classification, but it has a purpose, right? Because otherwise they wouldn't spend the ink. They would not spend the ink to print it, right? And I guess it goes in sequence. Asperger's, it's HFA, high functioning autism. Paradoxically, out of my Aspiesque comes the great intellectual geopolitical theories, and especially the DRT, which I'm discussing now. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, my 10,000, your 10,000, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We're going to add it all up. So we're going to add it all up and we're going to do the conversion. We're going to convert it into US dollars and we're going to add it with all the public private debt of the USA. So we're going to create this new currency called the UE. U. Universal, E. Exchange, U. UE. The universal exchange will have the value of the US dollar. We're going to cap an interest rate on all loans thereafter, all bank loans, credit loans at 10%. We're going to get rid of the border. We're going to fuse the RCMP and the FBI into the IPS, Imperial Police Service, or Citizen Police Service. We're going to do a census, see everybody who's been living here for the past 7 years. We're going to, if you haven't been convicted of 44 criminal convictions, we're going to accord the Imperial pardon. We're going to start building those 44 mass underground city tunnel structures. In case of a thermonuclear war, we're going to rebuild the infrastructure, mass finance, security, mass finance defense, build on the Canadian-US border, the biggest ever sports arena Coliseum ever built. See, Aspies, we're weird about these numbers. What do those mean? They have a meaning. Well, the 240, I know that's volts, that's the electric, but what's the PD10 and all that? So focus on the DRT, debt refusion theory, because it's going to be also lots of numbers, but it could be simplified because the DRT, debt refusion theory, is of course... Where's that, man? Where's that? The debt refusion theory. It is related to our financial saving. And we're going to save also the world in many ways. We can potentially, but maybe not because of World War III, as I predicted in 2019, I predicted what's happening now back in 2019. Yeah, I have proof. I have the videos online. I predicted that there was going to be an international conflagration, so I have proof for that. I have proof that there was going to be an international conflagration, as I concluded in 2019 that there was going to be one. And I have, because also I launched a series of my videos, especially the workout training program system, where we are now, of course, to be correlated in all the domains where we got to correlate and to be, of course, suffused and to be integrated and to be correlated and to be all the dynamics where we are now, the XYZ factors of the work which we got to endeavor ourselves to be in. And we have to implement the DRT. The DRT, we got the debt profusion theory. We're going to take all the public and the private debt and all the public and the private debt, where we're going to have to correlate and fuse, get rid of the border, do the great census. Granddaddy Trump. I would have voted for Biden, but it's not one. But you bet the greatest states, 13. We're going to add like the original. We can turn the 3 territories into 1. That would be 61. And of course, we're going to implement the DRT. We're going to take all the public and the private debt. We're going to convert all the public and the private debt. And we're going to, of course, convert all the public-private debt. All that number is going to be a massive number. And of course, we're going to convert it and create it into the imperial dollar, the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit. We're going to, of course, rebuild the infrastructure, the bridges, the roads, the potholes. Of course, we're going to rebuild them all. And we're going to, of course, consummately mass finance fitness, mass finance citizens fitness, mass finance citizens rehabilitation, that. And, of course, we're going to mass finance the rehabilitation of the infrastructure, the roads. We're going to rebuild it, mass finance the citizens fitness and tourism. We're going to do that census, build the 44 mass structures. We'll actually tunnel cities, and in case of a turn on the nuclear war, we're going to get inside to build the Golden Hawk, the Golden Dome. We're going to put a hawk in it, the Golden Hawk we're going to put in it, and that's how we're going to do it. And that's how we're going to be implemented in the strategies, of course, for the correlations and the correlational activities, where we're going to get that love and affairs to be correlated about all the dynamics, of course, where we got to be suffused, infused, and implement the DRT with vigor. And it's going to require all the banks, BlackRock and Blackstone, and my RBC, and the Bank of Canada, the Federal Reserve as well. We're going to get rid of the border, accord imperial phones to all citizens who are 16 and over. And we're also going to mass credit, mass finance, not just fitness, but tourism. 4 nights, 4 times a year, every spring equinox, the spring, the summer, and of course in the summer, in the spring, and of course in the winter, they're going to, of course, accord it, and we're going to, of course, mass finance that spring equinox, mass finance the fitness, the tourist activities. We're going to finance tourists for our youth who are 16 and over. You're gonna be able to go anywhere across the 50 states. So the mass department, Ministry of Tourism, we're gonna create the mass imperial public service and public security ministries and departments of the empires. We're gonna fuse Canada, United States. The king is absent. We can buy Uncle Connie a one-way ticket back to England to be with his king, where he pledged. Uncle Connie pledged allegiance to, and all prime ministers' predecessors pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. The king is absent. Uncle Connie pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. Think about that. Uncle Connie pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. So we gotta fuse our FBI, RCMP into the Imperial Police Service, or the Citizen Police Service, CPS or IPS, CIA and CSIS into the Imperial Security Integrated Service, the CIA Central Intelligence Service, and CSIS, Canadian Security Intelligence Service, into the Imperial Security Citizen Service, Imperial Security Integrated Service, the Imperial Security Integrated Service, security service, Imperial Security Integrated Service, by fusing the CSIS and the R and CIA, and together here with the new table. Here I got the new table on top of the Mount Royal. So pledge allegiance, to our family, always for the 10 to 50 and the 3, let our empire rise and be. So that is what we're gonna do categorically, and in all the manifestations where we are now. That is the beauty of it all, eh? The beauty of winter. Here is so much snow, you can come skiing, and if you enjoy it, to be with the skiing and to be correlated and doing some of that good hiking like I do, and I love coming here, and it's my second home. Well, top, now we're at the highest point in Montreal, eh? Highest point. Montreal, highest point. The topmost. The top, where we are now. The top mountain, Mount Royal, we're at the top of the mountain. So the UE, create the UE, fuse USA, United States. We're gonna have to reform the Constitution to the constitutional reform, and that's what we're gonna do. And we're gonna have total SSD, security, service, and defense. We're gonna get into the creation of the Golden Dome. We're gonna put a hawk in it every 4 days, every summer, spring, winter, solstice, equinox. We're gonna finance all citizens tourism when they're 16 and over, everywhere across the 63. They can go anywhere across the empire with food, housing, and lodging. You know, you can take four days 4 times a year, or you could take 8 days twice a year, or 16 once a year. So that's gonna be a public courtesy of the public imperial service. The Imperial Tourist Ministry, the Imperial Tourist Ministry is going to establish this for all citizens who are 16 and over. You can travel anywhere, so you can establish a fellow esprit de corps, because it's going to be one for all for one. In the coming days, weeks, months, by March 20th, I'm going to be establishing the 40-day special training rights, because every state, new state of the Imperial Republic, will have a dragon's lair. We're going to create the Dragon Army, aka the Imperial Integrated SSD Legion, Security, Service, and Defense Legion, only for security, service, and defense from existing ones, and the Dancing Goddess Army, the DGA Dancing Goddess Army, the Imperial Integrated Dance League, to dance for the environment, environmental education and action. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to dance for the environmental education and action, to take action, of course, in propositions to all, of course, of the realities where we are now, to be suffused in. So that is just something what we got to be doing now, and that's just what we got, you know. So all, of course, in the left and the right and in the middle, that's what we're going to get it. So that's what we're going to get, and that's what we're going to do, of course, to get it left and right and in the middle. And of course, that is the propositions what we're going to do now. So that is something which we're going to have to be correlations about, and we got to get, of course, to relate ourselves in all the administrative affairs, which we're going to fuse the Imperial Police, the FBI, and the RCMP into the IPS, the Imperial Police Service, and the CIA, with the CSIS into the Integrated Security, Imperial Security Integrated Service, Security Integrated Service. That's for the CIA, of course, CIA and CSIS, which we're going to fuse together, and the FBI, you know, the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, with, of course, the other ones. Of course, the FBI, of course, we're going to fuse it in the domain where we got now to be, and of course, we're going to get all that correlative aspects, of course, where we got to be related upon, and we got to get it, to get now the drills, and get, of course, to correlate ourselves and establish ourselves where we are now, and of course to be all the integral aspects of things like that. It requires a mass public-private partnership. So it requires a mass public-private partnership in all the fundamental aspects where we got now to be related upon, and all, of course, that relationships is the cordiality of where we are now, to establish this mass imperial service. And this mass imperial service is going to be required to us to pledge allegiance to our family, and of course it's going to be a mass public-private partnership affair, because fundamentally it is a public-private partnership, right? That is required for us to engage in such a structural manner in this mass new world order, because we're going to establish, of course, a new world order. And of course, the establishment of this new world order in complementarity where we are now is, of course, the domain where we got to be correlated upon. So that is just the reality of where we are now and the reality of our administrative affairs. And of course, just where we're going to move forward in all the apparel apparatus for all this new world order to emerge in consequence, for where we are now. So, of course, all that is to be appellated in, of course, the correlations where we integrate ourselves in this manner where we're going to get rid of the border and get the North American collective fusion thereof, and of course get it on the left and in the middle, and of course to be complementarity where we have now to be correlation above. So this is to be integrated, of course, fully with the DRT, and of course all that DRT depth fusion theory is of course something where we have now to be related, of course, in the imperial circle, which we're going to fuse the states, United States of America, Canada, the great imperial compromise, the great American-Canadian compromise from atop here, the mountain, Montreal, Washington. We're going to establish Montreal as a total SSD security plateau across the 63, of course. Every dragon's lair is going to be, every state is going to be a dragon's lair in it, and we're going to be for SSD and emergency response integrated with all existing services and organizations. We're going to be, of course, the relationship where we're going to get the border gone, fuse, finance tourism 4 days, 4 times a year, equinox, spring, solstice. Everybody who's 16 is going to be credited that. We're going to certify a phone. If citizens who are 16 and over, automatically we're going to have a phone from the empire, a public phone where text of security, notices to volunteer, notices to work out, to train, to exercise, encouragement for public implication, to fight alienation as the strongest reader core. We're going to, of course, remind that the public is ours. Imperial, the roads, the aqueducts, the building. We're going to establish the mass, the imperial public infrastructure. Our citizens are going to be aware that the highways, the bridges, and all that, the roads are going to be under a new imperial public administration. I gotta be careful because I sneeze sometimes. It's gonna be a new imperial public administration, and of course that imperial public administration is gonna be, of course, categorically the fact, of course, where we are now to be suffused in, and of course that is where we have to correlate ourselves, and you're gonna have to be in it 100%. So that, of course, is the complementarity where we are now, so that is just what it is, so that is something which you gotta be moving forward, eh? Hey?